Hey guys, welcome back to Falcon Central Radio, part of the Pro Football Central Radio Network. I am your host, Aaron Freeman, and today we're doing a All-22 breakdown, continuing this series, for the fourth time, the fourth Saturday in a row, in which we are breaking down film of new Falcons players that they have signed in free agency. We've gone through Hayden Hurst, we've gone through Todd Gurley, we went through Dante Fowler last week. And today, I guess we're going through the fourth biggest signing of the offseason in former Minnesota Viking wide receiver Laquon Treadwell. For those of you guys that don't know, I put out a poll earlier this week to see who you wanted me to break down, Laquon Treadwell or Justin McCray, but I put Justin Murray. I'm going to get those two guys confused, two sort of versatile offensive linemen. But Treadwell won the poll, so he is the choice for today. And today we're going to go through, some of the positives, some of the negatives that you get with Laquon Treadwell. We're going to talk about, his route running. We're going to talk about his hands. We're going to talk about what his role is going to be potentially in Atlanta. Why did the Falcons make this signing? Could they have gotten a better option to sort of compete for a backup role here in Atlanta this upcoming season? We'll get into all of that stuff. We'll go back and look at some of his film from 2017. We'll look at some of his film from 2018, as well as some of his highlight plays from 2019, which was his most productive season in terms of generating sort of, big plays. And we'll sort of see if, are we getting more of that Treadwell, or are we getting more of the previous player that was a little bit inconsistent for a former first-round pick? So without further ado, let's sort of jump into it. We'll go back to a Week 6 game that Treadwell had against the Green Bay Packers back in 2017, where he made a couple of nice plays. And this will also give us an opportunity to talk a little bit about a recent signing the Falcons made in Josh Hodgins. Treadwell is here on the bottom of your screen. He's going to get a nice little beat. Josh Hodgins is the cornerback that the Falcons signed earlier this week. I'll let the play run through full speed, and then we will break down sort of what we need to break down. Nice throw by Case Keenum. Treadwell wins. Let's go back. So, Josh Hodgins is going to be in press coverage here at the bottom of your screen. Treadwell's going to be here. Treadwell's going to do a nice job getting Hodgins turned around, beating him with inside leverage. Then he's going to get him turned around right there at the top of the route. Hodgins needs to basically flip those hips, feel Treadwell sort of breaking to the outside, flip those hips and break with him. But he basically gets completely turned around. Treadwell creates some nice separation. Good job by Treadwell against a also now current Falcon, Josh Hodgins. So not the greatest highlight reel for Josh Hodgins, not your best introduction for him, but a solid introduction for Laquon Treadwell. We'll go on to a highlight reel cache. This is probably the number one play on Treadwell's highlight reel. He's going to be here at the top of the screen. Again, lined up against Josh Hodgins for a one-handed back shoulder throw. It's going to be a nice grab. As you see, we'll run it through again. You'll see a little bit better from the end zone angle coming up. There it is. All right, let's slow it down. Hodgins is going to do a better job using the sideline as an extra defender, not letting Treadwell get inside leverage, as you'll see there. But, back shoulder fades are really difficult to defend for cornerbacks. It's designed, and Treadwell's going to do a nice job, extending. You'll see it better from the end zone angle. Timing that jump, making that one-handed grab right there, knocking the ball back to him and securing it. So good job by Laquon Treadwell. We'll go to his next play, which is the last play from this game that we'll show you. It's a nice 8-yard catch. Does a nice job again here at the bottom of the screen, this time working against Lindsey Pipkins, gets a nice inside release, settles down, makes a nice grab, gets the forward progress to get a nice 8-yard gain. Again, what we'll see throughout this film breakdown is Treadwell does his best job against winning on the inside. You'll see again working that press, particularly against press coverage. So the slants and those types of routes are really his best routes. So a solid job, solid introduction for Laquon Treadwell, one of his better games in 2017 from a statistical standpoint, and showcases some of his ability. Let's move on to a couple of games from 2018 where we get a little bit more of a mixed bag. And let's see. So we'll start off with the week 1 performance against the 49ers, right? And we're going to see the first of several drops from Laquon Treadwell. He's going to be here in this bunch formation here. He's going to kind of look a little lost because what he was asked to do, which is run a rub route for Thielen's flat route, doesn't work out because the 49ers blitz from that side. We'll go deeper through it. He's going to drop the ball sitting over the middle and just have a bad concentration drop. Does not look the ball in, and you'll see it again. And we'll go back through it, and we'll break down exactly what happens on this play. So, yeah, concentration drop. But let's go back through this play. So the 49ers are going to show pressure, this A-gap pressure, and what they're going to wind up doing is having an overload blitz with these two defenders coming off of the blitz. Now, what the Vikings are trying to do is they're trying to get a rub route. This is like a 3rd and 6. Yeah. So Thielen's going to be here. Treadwell's here. I think this is Diggs. So they're going to try to run a rub route against whoever's going to be covering Thielen as he goes into the flat to try to convert this 3rd and 6. But because these two defenders actually blitz on this particular play, Treadwell's going to be sort of stuck, and you're going to see in a second, like Treadwell just kind of sits there because he's expecting to run a pick on these two guys. None of them cover, or none of them cover Thielen, so they're going to both blitz, and they're going to try to run an overload. They're going to show pressure, but this middle linebacker, this linebacker, and this defensive end are all going to drop into coverage. So they're going to try to get these 3 guys against, and this 4th guy going up against 3 blockers. The Vikings aren't going to necessarily do a great job picking up because somebody is going to come free to rush this throw. So what's going to end up happening, Treadwell is going to be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And then he's going to realize, okay, let me try to get open. Right, there. See, Treadwell's, that initial step is, I'm going to run the rub route. They blitz. These guys drop. Treadwell's kind of stuck. I don't know what I'm doing. And then he realizes, let me try to get open. They're going to run a little improvised mesh concept. He's going to try to cross underneath this tight end. And Cousins is going to put it right on him. And he's just going to drop it. Concentration drop. You'll see it better from this end zone angle. He takes his eyes off the ball. He starts turning, looking up here. You can't really see clearly as I try to pause the frame, but basically he's just going to have a concentration drop. So, we're going to see a couple of drops. It gets worse in the next game that we show, but that's going to be the key one. Here's Treadwell here at the bottom against Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman's going to do a great job pressing him at the line of scrimmage, jamming him at the line of scrimmage, using that sideline as an extra defender. As I said, Treadwell does his best work when he gets those inside releases, but Sherman's going to do a great job getting that inside leverage, jamming him. Cousins is going to make a nice throw to Treadwell, put the ball in the spot where he can potentially catch it. So watch again here at the bottom of your screen. Jam. He can't beat that jam. Tries to cross over. Does a good job putting Sherman on his hip pocket. Cousins is going to throw this ball right about here, which is a good throw, good placement. Treadwell's got to come back for it. But with Sherman sort of draped all over him, can't really make that grab in traffic and whatnot. So good job by Sherman. And that's where Treadwell hasn't necessarily progressed to the level that I think people hoped he would, because we saw him beat up on, a low-level corner like Josh Hodgins in the earlier game, but against the premium competition. Here we have Treadwell doing some good job against after the catch, working in the zone. 49ers, this linebacker, Brock Croyle, is going to be out of position here working this cover 2. He just doesn't read it as quickly as you want to. And he's going to shrug off that tackle, get tripped up, and then Ronald Blair is going to didn't stop it in time. Is going to chase him down from behind. So good job by Treadwell finding that soft spot in the zone. easy sort of, again, inside release. This is cover 2. So Sherman's got the flat against Dalvin Cook. This linebacker should be cheating over here. You'll see it better from the end zone angle. Cousins is staring down this side of the field, and this linebacker is a little late reacting to this throw, so he's not in great position here to wind up making this tackle. He should be sort of slowly cheating over, reading Cousins' eyes, but he's late breaking on that throw. Treadwell does a nice job avoiding that tackle, tripping up, and then Ronald Blair, who the Falcons should have signed, winds up chasing him down from behind, 16 yards down the field. Very a high motor player that I'm still butthurt that the Falcons didn't try to sign in free agency for very cheap. That could have wound up somewhat filling the shoes of Adrian Claiborne and also giving the team value as a run defense. But it is what it is. Sorry. So this last play we're going to show you, this is Treadwell here at the bottom. He's going to run a drag route. Sorry. It was bemoaning the Falcons free agent moves. And Fred Warner, an actual good linebacker, unlike Brock Royal, is going to chase down and just simple, easy production, 2-yard completion for Treadwell. Just wanted to show you, like, oh, yeah, he can produce when it's easy creation stuff for him offensively. Let's go to the week 2 game against the Packers. And this first play is going to be the best play of Treadwell. He's going to be here at the bottom going up against Kevin King. He's going to get that inside release for a touchdown on this play. This is his best play. But then as we get further along in this game, we're going to see a lot of issues with the drops. Again, good job putting King on his hip pocket, making that nice grab. We'll see it again better from the end zone angle, and then I'll slow it down when we rewind. Yep. Okay. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. This is what happens when you are trying to multitask. I was trying to peek in, see what people were saying in the chat, and then I hit the wrong button. What week are we in? Week 2 for 2018. So we'll show you this play again. Good inside release for Treadwell, puts him on the hip pocket. As you see, nice jab step. There you go. Touchdown. Easy play for Laquon Treadwell. This next play is going to be another bad drop for Treadwell. Takes his eyes off the ball. He's going to be, again, at the front of this trips formation here at the bottom of your screen. He's going to find a soft spot in the zone here over the middle. Cousins going to get some pressure up the middle, avoid that pressure, step up, throw it to Treadwell, but he's just going to drop it because he doesn't look the ball in. You'll see it better from the end zone angle. Treadwell's off to the left. He's going to settle in behind this linebacker who's going to drop into coverage. So he'll cross your screen there. So there's your concentration drop. You'll see it. All right. So, Cousins going to get this pressure from Reggie Gilbert from the outside, step up in the pocket. Treadwell does a good job clearing. He's going to clear behind this linebacker, sit there, right? But then he's going to keep working to the quarterback, that's a good job by Treadwell. Cousins going to deliver as he's in the grasp. And you see him put the hands out there, catch the ball. Now his eyes are not on securing the football. His eyes are on this defender as he's trying to turn up field, and you'll see him immediately drop the ball, right? And that's a bad issue with Treadwell. A lot of his drops are these sort of concentration type drops and not securing the ball because he's looking for yards after catch. And this is going to be Treadwell. He's going to run a little bit of a crosser against Jair Alexander in off coverage. And he's going to do a nice job, positioning. Again, going back to an earlier point I made, he does his best work sort of on slants and stuff where he can use his size to get positioning, position himself between the defender and the ball. And that's where he's at his best work. And so that's a nice play from him. The next play, don't feel like I need to really rewind that. Sorry. But the next play is going to be another drop. He's going to have another inside release here on sort of an improvised slant, and he's going to drop the ball. It's going to wind up being a pick. Yeah, there it is. Clinton Dix gets the deflection. And again, I think this is another instance where he does not do a great job securing the ball because he's looking upfield to see where that safety is. Clinton Dix to see if he's about to get decked. And, takes his eyes off the ball for a second before securing it. And it leads to an interception. There you go. Let's run it back. You'll see right there, extends for the ball, catches it. Now, you can't really tell. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. I think his head starts to turn at this moment, and he's looking for where the safety is as he's extending for this grab. As you can see, his eyes are looking this way as opposed to securing this football. A ball deflects off of his hands. Easy pick. So I think these are the types of plays right there where, again, Treadwell had a really major issues in this game. We got another bad sort of killer drop later in this game. This is in the fourth quarter. This game winds up going into overtime between the Packers and the Vikings. And we'll go into the overtime here. We'll get back-to-back plays. This is just a simple miscommunication. It's a 2nd and long, I believe, or 2nd and 9. And Treadwell's here at the bottom. It's just going to miss. He's going to break inside. Cousins going to throw outside. Not much more to it, but it sets up the next play, which is going to be the killer for Treadwell, where he's going to have another bad drop that's going to lead to a long field goal for the Vikings that the Vikings are going to miss. And, it's going to lead to that kicker getting cut the following day because he misses another field goal later in this overtime. So Treadwell's going to be here at the top of your screen. These two guys are going to run vertical routes, Thielen and Diggs, to sort of open up this underneath. It's a 3rd and 9. This play is not going to convert, but basically the Vikings are running a quick little easy completion to set up a more manageable field goal. Right now, where they're at, it's going to be a 49-yard field goal. If Treadwell makes his catch, it's potentially like a 45-yard field goal, which statistically is a lot more makeable. And who knows, but he's going to wind up dropping this. You're going to sit there and say, well, it's thrown right behind him. But what you can't tell is this is actually great placement by Cousins, because this defender with Treadwell, if he throws it in front of Treadwell, this defender, I think it's Tramon Williams, is going to have it's Devon House. Is going to have an opportunity to jump this, right? So if he throws it out front of here, he has a potential to jump this. So Cousins going to put it right on Treadwell's back shoulder, like right about here, and that should be a catch. At any receiver in the NFL, you can sit there and say, oh, it's not ideal placement. No, that's perfect placement for this throw. It should be a catch. Again, it's well shy of the sticks, but this, again, is going to put the Vikings in a more manageable situation. You're going to see this better from the end zone angle. Just hits him in the hands and just bounces off of his hands. So that's not helping out your quarterback. As I said earlier, the Vikings going to settle for a long field goal. The kicker misses it. The Packers get the ball back. Then the Vikings are going to get the ball back again with regulation running out. The kicker's going to miss a 35-yard field goal. So you can certainly argue, hey, the kicker would have missed that 45-yarder too as well. But you got to help your football team out, and Treadwell does not do that in that particular case. So let's move on to the Rams game. Let me take a drink of my water because my throat is parched. Andrew Shawala says, so Michael Thomas route tree is Treadwell's route tree. Pretty much, yeah. The 5-yard slants is really where Treadwell wins when it comes to his production. So if you guys have any comments or questions, of course, jump in the chat here as we do this thing live on YouTube. Let's go to this Rams game. Again, this is going to be a better performance from Treadwell. He's going to be here at the top. He's going to beat Sam Shields against press coverage. You can get that inside release and do a good job to snatch the ball out of the air. Boom, right there. And avoid that tackle. You wish he could break the tackle of LaMarcus Joyner since he outweighs him by like 20 pounds, but it is what it is. Treadwell's not a great yards after catch guy, but there's a couple plays in here. So good job. Again, that quick slant does a good job. We'll see it again. You can see it better from this angle. Again, quick slant, boom, catches it in stride. That's exactly what you want to see from this play. Good play by Laquon Treadwell. I'll let it run through from the end zone angle so you guys can see it again. Yeah. So good play by Laquon Treadwell. Again, that's where he wins those Michael Thomas-like slants. Although, that one went, 7, 8 yards. So that's about a little further than Michael Thomas. Here he is against Marcus Peters at the top of your screen. Again, he's going to try to get that outside release. And we're going to show you that he just doesn't have that vertical speed to get on top of that defender. But due to the pressure from Aaron Donald, this is not Treadwell's fault or anything like that, but it just sort of how Aaron Donald's going to be here. He's going to get pressure on Kirk Cousins. I think John Franklin Myers, 94, is also going to get pressure, flush him, throw it away. So nothing wrong with what Treadwell did, but just goes to show you that, when you're playing him in press coverage, again, Marcus Peters, as we saw earlier with Richard Sherman, that outside release, that outside speed, he just doesn't really do a great job with. But that's going to be a bigger issue when we get later, when we talk about what exactly Treadwell's going to do for the Falcons. Let's move on to the next play. He's going to have a 6-yard hitch at the top of your screen. Look how far Peters is off. This is easy production. This is I think a first down or something. So just keeping the offense on schedule, he can do those types of things. This is basically no different than the 6-yard run on 1st and 10. So solid play by Treadwell, and pretty much any receiver in the league should be capable of doing this. So it's not necessarily a feather in Treadwell's hat, but again, got to show some positive with the negative, which is going to be negative right here. We're going to get another drop from Treadwell. He's going to be here at the bottom of your screen. They're going to run a rollout. He's going to cross the field, and he's going to drop another pass that he has no business not catching. Again, as you see, Cousins throws it to his back shoulder again. And I once again, I think Treadwell might hear the footsteps, because we've seen that be an issue on some other drops. And there may be a moment here where he sees a flash of color turning upfield and then loses concentration and drops the ball. We'll run it back here. Right, that ball's on his back shoulder. Not ideal placement, but very catchable pass. Secures it, and you're going to see that head turn. And I think he's going to see that flash of color from this safety. I think that's John Johnson. And then the ball comes out right there. You're going to see that flash of color, gearing up for the hit. And, that I think we can argue that he maybe heard the footsteps a little bit on that play. So, again, maybe that's a stretch to some of you guys, but because we've seen that issue come up time and time again already on today's film breakdown, I don't think it's too much of a reach. But here's a good job of Treadwell on the bottom of your screen with off coverage. He's going to come work his way. This is going to be an incomplete pass again, because Aaron Donald's going to get pressure up the middle and force a throwaway. But I like the fact that he works back to his quarterback. We saw that earlier on the drop against the Packers, where Cousins was moving in the pocket and he kept working. And so, that's a positive. It doesn't result in anything, but I like the fact that if you have a mobile quarterback, which we know Matt Ryan isn't necessarily, maybe if in a day and age where Danny Etling is the Falcons' starting quarterback, we'll see, him working his way back, but he can improvise a little bit. We've seen that already today. So I just like that. If you have a mobile quarterback, and maybe that's a way that can help Treadwell out, be able to get open a little bit more at times. So positive for that, but doesn't result in anything. We're going to see him here in the slot, in the slot here, and run a little flat route here. This play doesn't develop the way the Vikings want it to because of the pressure up the middle. And number 94, Franklin Myers, is going to get pressure up the middle and force Cousins have to get rid of this ball sooner rather than later. I'll break down exactly what the Vikings were looking for on this play. They were looking for Thielen on that intermediate route because it's a 2nd and 18. So essentially what they're going to run, 3 high-low concepts. Treadwell here, the inside slot's going to run in the flat. He's going to be the easy sort of quote-unquote check down. You're going to have Thielen run this intermediate route. He's going to run past the sticks on the 2nd and 18. And then you're going to have Diggs run the vertical route, which is going to hold this deep coverage. And so the design of this play is the vertical route from Diggs is going to pull these 2 deep defenders deep. The underneath route from Treadwell is going to hold these 2 the underneath defenders, and that's going to give an open opportunity for Thielen. And the play does work as it's designed, but because the Vikings offensive line can't hold up long enough, Cousins has to get rid of the ball sooner rather than later. Rather than holding on to the ball and waiting for Thielen to get open. But as you can tell, Thielen does actually get open on this particular play. So you see Treadwell breaking on the underneath route. Now Thielen's breaking on the intermediate route. Diggs has got the vertical route. Again, you see it pulling these defenders. This underneath route is pulling this defender. You see Thielen's open. There's the sticks right there. But the ball's already out because of the pressure, right? That pressure came early because I think that's Riley Reid getting basically walked back to the quarterback. And Cousins, makes a 9-yard completion, get up in a third and more manageable situation. So, Treadwell does his job on this play as designed, easy completion, more of a check down sort of thing. Then we get to the very next play, and this is the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, by the way. So this is the final drive. The Vikings are down 7 points. They're trying to drive the score. So this is the very next play. This is the 3rd and 9 that Treadwell helped set up, and he's actually going to get the conversion. He's going to be working out of the slot. And so for those folks that are out here talking about Treadwell being, a Mohamed Sanu type, he's going to find the soft spot in the zone, settle behind that linebacker/safety, Marquis Christian, who's basically the Rams version of Kamal Ishmael, and who's out of position here. And Treadwell's going to get that conversion on a 13-yard gain on 3rd and 9. Does a nice job settling in, as you can see, just finding that soft spot in the zone. Right. And this linebacker is just not, reading this correctly. So he's just out of position. But good job by Treadwell to convert. Now, on the very next play, this guy, John Franklin Myers, who we've highlighted a couple of times, winds up getting a sack strip. And that pretty much ends the game right there. So all for naught for Laquon Treadwell. But, some positive, some negative. Let's move on to his 2019 film. We got 2 or 3 games that I want to show you. Let's start with the Chiefs game in week 9. And again, he's going to be working in the slot on this play. This is a 3rd and 10. And he's going to be working in the slot right here against Rashad Fenton. And you're going to see some verticality in his game. Running this vertical seam route. He's going to get on top of the corner. Doesn't create that vertical separation that you want in a true deep threat. And for those of you guys that remember last week's episode about Dante Fowler, I showed you a play from Julio Jones. Obviously, it's Julio Jones, of course. But against Jalen Ramsey, and he created that vertical separation on the go route for a 39-yard play against the Rams. And, again, gets on top of the corner, but this is why, Treadwell doesn't offer deep speed. We'll get into this more later. Doesn't really create that vertical separation, but he gets open. Cousins overthrows him. There's pressure in his face right there. You can see the pressure coming up. It's Chris Jones, Tano Passanio, putting the offensive lineman in his lap. And, there you have that. Let's move on to the next play. Again, this is going to be one of Treadwell's actual deep plays. He's going to work a deep crosser from the opposite hash, get over here, settle in the zone. This corner is going to be stuck, kind of covering no man's lane. He's going to be covering grass as Shavaris Ward, I think. You'll see there's Treadwell at the bottom of your screen. Good job shrugging off that tackle, making the catch in traffic. We saw that being an issue in the games I showed you from 2018, where he would have seen this guy and dropped the ball. But that's a good job by Treadwell not dropping that pass. But yeah, let's show you the play. Treadwell here in the slot. He's going to work his way over. The Chiefs are in cover 2, which means this corner is going to be responsible for the flat. But what he doesn't do, right, he's going to release this defender for the deep safety to pick up. You're going to see this underneath route here. And so his responsibility is flat, but because this linebacker picks up the flat route, he kind of needs to cheat backwards a little bit maybe, and he doesn't do that. And Treadwell finds a soft spot in his zone. Good job by Treadwell making the catch, working those intermediate zones, and gets one of the bigger plays for 26 yards that we see this past season in 2019. And we're going to get another play where he's working out of the slot coming up right here. 3rd and 11. He's going to get a conversion here on this play. Here's Treadwell again. He's going to work against Fenton again, and Fenton's going to get his eye stuck in the backfield and lose Treadwell, and he's going to keep working, get that out pattern. Good conversion. Good job by Treadwell. But you'll see as we rewind it, after we run it through one time, Fenton kind of loses track of the ball. He's got his eye stuck in the backfield. Good job by Treadwell. So what, Fenton's going to, right here, when Treadwell working to the outside, Fenton's going to turn and look back for the ball. And at that moment, that's where Treadwell's going to create that separation. You see that moment right there, right? Fenton's carrying. Then he's going to look back for the ball. Ball's about to come out. And then Treadwell's right, Fenton's right there, but boom. That hesitation gives Treadwell that time he needs to create that separation. So good job by Treadwell. Not ideal from Rashad Fenton. You don't want to lose track of the receiver when you turn and look in the backfield. We'll have another play where he's going to be working at the top against Brashad Breeland. Breeland's going to kind of jam him, but the Chiefs cover 2. He's going to jam him right there, but he's going to keep working to the soft spot in the cover 2, make a big catch 19 yards down the field. Blown coverage, whatever you want to call it. You might have seen the ref throw the flag. They initially ruled it offensive pass interference on Treadwell, but it gets overturned upon review. Nice throw by Cousins with a receiver in his face. But yeah, so, the cover 2, this safety has responsibility for the deep hash, but what they're going to do is this safety is the guy that's going to rotate over. The Chiefs are kind of disguising their looks somewhat. And this safety, I think Juan Thornhill is going to be a little late getting there. So good play by Treadwell. Again, finding another soft spot in the zone. So solid play by Treadwell. Let's go to the last play in this Chiefs game, and this is going to be a drop pass. He's going to be working inside in this 3-by-1 set right here. He's going to release into the flat, sort of get that little jam at the line of scrimmage and just drop the ball. So here's Treadwell again. He's going to sort of, chuck him. I forget what the word. My brain's not working fully today, guys. And he's just going to mistime his jump. I don't know why Treadwell, right? You just mistime his jump. Like, why is he jumping so early? Just doesn't need to do that. Yeah, so you'll see it better from this end zone angle, a little bit better. It's like that's an easy completion and tracks the ball poorly, mistimes his jump. So we got another game from 2019 against the Lions. Let me check the chat. Okay. All right. Let's go to this Lions game. He's going to win on an out pattern against Justin Coleman on this play. He is right. No, he's at the top, I think. Or no, is he right here? I can't remember. I'm sorry, guys. I think this is him. Yeah, that's him in the slot. And again, it's the same play that we saw from Rashad Fenton where Justin Coleman's going to look back, lose track of Treadwell on this out pattern. He's running, this is a, if you're going to sit here and argue, oh, he can do Mohamed Sanu stuff, this is probably the best play to show, right? Because he's going to run the little stutter step that Sanu does so well on those option routes on the slot. Stutter step, boom, breaks to the outside. Coleman, you see, sort of watch Coleman on that play. Once again, Coleman's eyes are going to turn to look in the backfield. And in that moment, he's going to lose right there, right? You see that little jump step where Coleman just loses Treadwell. Treadwell gets that separation right there. Good job by Treadwell to get open on that play. So if you're, looking for that Sanu-like player, Treadwell can give you a little bit of that stuff, working out of the slot, using his size to get positioning and running some, simple outs and whatnot. On some of those option plays. Here's going to be one of Treadwell's bigger plays of the year against the Lions. He's going to do a nice job finding the soft spot in the zone. He's going to be here at the top of your screen. He's going to run a vertical route, a corner route here. and then he's going to break a tackle. Poor job tackling by this guy, Darius Slay. You might have heard of him. And then the safety, Will Harris, the rookie, also does not wrap up and make the tackle. And that's, Treadwell's rack ability here on the right side of your screen. He's going to run that corner route. Does a nice job catching it and, keeps working. And it's a good job. Again, let's show the poor tackling. Darius Slay is basically making business decisions. Oh, Will Harris has got it, blah, 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 blah. And, Will Harris doesn't have it. So good job by Treadwell due to poor tackling, gets about 12, 15 yards after the catch. So one of his bigger plays of 2019, I'm about to show you his biggest play of 2019. And you might call this a highlight reel. This is, I think, his only touchdown of the year. A 58-yarder the week before against the Seattle Seahawks. Treadwell's going to be here at the top. Shaq Griffin, they're playing, the Seahawks are going to cover 4. Shaq Griffin's going to blow this coverage because of Cousins escaping the pocket, and he's worried about Cousins running, which, as I say it out loud, doesn't make any sense, right? And he's just going to wind up blowing that coverage, and Treadwell's going to get wide open for an easy 58-yard touchdown. Yeah, that's just a blown coverage. Treadwell taking advantage of, again, cover 4, Seahawks, the 4 deep. This guy's got the deep. This guy's got the deep. This guy's got the deep. Shaq Griffin's got the deep. He's going to try to jam him. Then he's supposed to carry him deep, but he doesn't do it. Or he starts to, right? But then Cousins going to escape, and he's going to come off of him. And he shouldn't have done that. So, blown coverage, Treadwell benefits. And that's really about it for Laquon Treadwell. I mean, obviously, he doesn't have a huge body of work in terms of a lot of production to show you. I could sit here and show you a bunch of sort of routine plays that he made or did not make. But it's pretty common. You're going to see slants and whatnot. The year that I think 2018 was his most productive year. And basically, all the Vikings did was run a lot more slants and short stuff. And he got more targets, and it was more a product of, scheme and whatnot than necessarily Treadwell doing a great job. Struggles, the thing about Treadwell was when he came out of South Carolina, like he was a big receiver that people, didn't run fast, wasn't going to be a guy that was going to be a vertical stretch guy. He plays faster than like a 4.63, but like he's not a burner, as I showed you on that play against the Chiefs. He's not a guy that's going to get on top of corners and really outrun those guys. He probably plays like at a 4.55, somewhere in that 4.52, 4.53 sort of range. He has that type of speed, but nothing that's dangerous, that's threatening. And so the expectation with Treadwell was going to be that he was going to be this, catch point, this, jump ball type of guy. You see a guy like Mike Williams with the Chargers, and that's really where Mike Williams thrives. You saw, if you're an older fan, the Chargers like these type of receivers. They had Malcolm Floyd, they had Vincent Jackson. He doesn't have Jackson's speed, but Floyd was that type of receiver, a big guy that won, in the air type of guy. Allen Robinson's another type of that wide receiver. And so that was the hope that Treadwell was going to be that type of player with his size, his physicality. He could be that sort of jump ball guy. But as I've shown you in a couple of plays, and the more you dive into his film, like in traffic, he's not really that reliable. When it comes to those types of plays, because, I showed you a couple of his drops where he doesn't do a great job securing the ball. He just doesn't win a lot in traffic. He doesn't really win those, jump ball type of situations. And when you look at the rest of his skill set, because he doesn't have that speed, because he doesn't have that sudden, ability to separate from coverage, and he doesn't have reliable hands, like he's not really bringing a whole lot to the table. And that's why he didn't really succeed in Minnesota. And so now the Falcons are bringing him here with the expectation that he'll compete for a reserve role. And I've seen people say when we signed him, like, oh yeah, he's got the size to be, a more physical type that the Falcons lack without having Mohamed Sanu. And again, showed you some plays where he can bring like Sanu-like skills on some simple stuff out of the slot, outs and slants and whatnot. And those are things that Sanu could do pretty well as well. But like the Falcons kind of already have a player that can do that type of stuff in their offense, and that's Russell Gage. Like Russell Gage stepped into Sanu's role pretty well at the second half of the season. He didn't have Sanu's production on third downs. He didn't have Sanu's production in the red zone, but those are areas of Russell Gage's ability and skill set that can be improved upon with more reps, with more repetition with Matt Ryan. I think I showed you guys a play last week when Dante Fowler, where there was a play where Russell Gage got open, found a soft spot in the zone. Matt Ryan threw the ball to a spot, but Russell Gage didn't quite sit on the route like Matt Ryan was expecting him to. And so it looked like the ball was thrown behind him. But again, you always side with the quarterback. Generally speaking, the receivers got to adjust to the quarterback, not the quarterback adjusting to the receiver as much in this league. And so that's just a rapport issue that Russell Gage and Matt Ryan, hopefully, obviously we know the COVID-19 stuff is disrupting the offseason, so we don't know how much work they're going to be able to get together. But you hope that with time and with more reps, those are the types of plays that Gage is going to be able to make adjustments to. So, I know Andy Steven in the chat says, how does he compare with his competition this summer with Russell Gage? Like, for me, the point I'm trying to get to is, like, you don't need a Sanu type. You already have a poor man Sanu and Russell Gage. He's not as physical as Sanu was, but he can do most of the things that Sanu could do. What the Falcons really lack in terms of their wide receiver group is a outside vertical stretch guy beyond Julio Jones, beyond Calvin Ridley. And that really showcased itself towards the end of the season when Ridley got hurt. And the Falcons basically moved Julio Jones to the slot almost full time and basically just kept running their offense through that. And that's what I mean, where it's like, you don't really need a slot receiver if you're the Falcons. You have Julio Jones as A, he's your best slot receiver that you can have. B, if you want another good slot receiver, you can always put Calvin Ridley in the slot and he'll be just as good, if not better. You have Russell Gage, who's better in the slot than he is as an outside receiver. You have Christian Blake, that's arguably a better slot receiver than an outside receiver because he struggles against press coverage because he's a tall guy. He's like 6'3", but he's 185 pounds. He's a skinny guy. So he's not very physical. You have Olamide Zaccheaus, who's a 5'8.5", 5'9.5", 185-pound guy who also struggled against press coverage, who's probably better in the slot as that sort of Cole Beasley type of player. So if you're looking at Treadwell as like, oh, he's a big slot guy, it's like, we don't really need that. We already have like 5 effective slot receivers. What we need as far as our receiver group is a guy that can line up on the outside and stretch the field vertically in the event that a guy like Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley's injured and you lack that verticality in your offense. So Treadwell's not really going to bring that. So I have a hard time seeing Treadwell beating out a guy like Russell Gage because Treadwell's new to the offense, new to the system, all these various things. Again, doesn't really have a great skill set there. He can do some stuff. If you didn't have a decent option in the slot, I would be like, oh yeah, Treadwell can come in and do some stuff there. So I have a hard time seeing Treadwell beating out Russell Gage for the number 3 spot. And the real issue with if you're not in top 3 receivers, you kind of need to be able to play special teams in order to have a carve out a role in this team. Now, Justin Hardy was the 4th receiver last year, didn't play a ton of special teams. But we know Justin Hardy could play special teams because that's what he did for the first 3 years of his NFL career. Treadwell doesn't really do that. He never really carved out a regular role in special teams with the Vikings. So are you going to have him on coverage teams? Are you going to have him covering kicks? Are you going to have him covering punts? And if the answer is no, then I don't necessarily know whether Treadwell has a good shot at making the roster. Like, he could make the roster if the Falcons decide to keep 6 receivers and, they want to stash Treadwell as a guy. And we'll have to sort of see what the rest of the roster competition is, hopefully, when we get to training camp, in a couple of months, hopefully, cross your fingers. And, but, it's not to sit here and say that Treadwell can't make this roster, but, like, what is his ideal role? Like, he's just kind of in the mix with guys like Christian Blake and Olamide Zaccheaus. So, like, to me, he's kind of a camp body. He's in the mix with these undrafted free agents. So I think Treadwell could make the team, but I'm not like overly impressed with what he's going to bring to the table. Does he block like Sanu? I mean, that was the other thing when Treadwell was coming out. Not really. I mean, like, the expectations was that he was going to be a better blocker. He's a decent blocker. I didn't show you any plays of that, but like, there's plays where he's a pretty decent blocker because he's big and he's strong. So like, sure, but Justin Hardy was a great blocker and no one cared, right? Because like, if you're not making plays as a pass catcher, no one cares how good a blocker you are. CD3224 says, can he return kicks? I don't think he's ever really had that much experience doing so in the NFL. Let me look. I know he was on the kick return team when he was in Minnesota. Let's see. No, he's never returned kicks in pros, and did not do so. He returned one kickoff for 3 yards in college at Ole Miss as a sophomore. So, no. The answer is no. Steen Kivette says, I remember seeing Treadwell get drafted and he was upset about going to the Vikings. I don't recall that, but I imagine, they had Thielen and Diggs emerging at that time. So, yeah, if he had the foresight to realize that he was going to get lost in the shuffle there, then I can understand that. I know this is off topic from Cody Stokes in the chat, but could the Falcons afford Everson Griffin? Not right now. I think the Falcons have about $1.5 million, $2 million in cap space right now. So you're not going to be able to get Everson Griffin at that cheap. You might be if the Falcons had maybe like $4 or so million in cap space, they could afford Everson Griffin at this point in time, just because that first year salary would be relatively cheap. But right now they don't have the cap space. So, and unless they restructure someone's contract between now and June, they're not going to have the cap space. So, no. But if Griffin's still available in June when Trufant's contract comes off the books and the Falcons get about, I think, $10.75 million, then they will have an opportunity to afford Everson Griffin. But my expectation is Griffin's going to get snatched up sometime in May. One of these teams, particularly a team like Seattle, or possibly going back to Minnesota, some team is not going to be able to get the pass rusher that they're going to want. And that's when you're going to see guys like Clowney and Griffin get signed by these teams in May. So, but you never know. Maybe teams are dragging their feet and whatnot because they have other issues that they're at the front of their minds because of the whole coronavirus thing. Also, Cody asks, who is in the draft that can play outside? Oh, where to begin? Obviously, there's several early round receivers that can play outside. You got guys like Brandon Ayuk, round 2. Laviska Shenault can play inside, outside, round 2. Who else? Jalen Reagor is also an inside, outside guy from TCU. Is a round 2 guy. Michael Pittman is that big X wide receiver. He's going to probably go in round 2. Chase Claypool could be that big X wide receiver. He's not really a vertical threat, but he's a big guy that can play outside. I know a lot of people are like, oh, put him in as a tight end, make him a big slot, which I think he has the potential to do, but he primarily was an outside receiver at Notre Dame, so I think that's probably where you start him off, and then you slowly work him inside if he doesn't prove effective there. So he's also a round 2, round 3. I think he'll probably go round 3. Let me actually look at a list of prospects. Let's go to the Draft Network. So hold on. Let's add this to the stream. Let's talk about some of these wide receivers. Yeah, so these guys are going to go first round. I think Denzel Mims is going to go first round. Denzel Mims would be ideal as your X wide receiver, as your Julio heir apparent. That would probably be the best pick in this draft in terms of the guy that has the size to line up outside, besides maybe Henry Ruggs. But Ruggs is purely a deep threat. KJ Hamler is a fast slot. T. Higgins is a big X. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a big X. Van Jefferson's a slot receiver. Brian Edwards kind of a slot receiver. Tyler Johnson's an inside-outside guy. I think he might be a big slot. He doesn't really have outside speed. Courtney Davis is slot. Chase Claypool I mentioned. Devin Duvernay, he's a guy to keep an eye on because he's a slot receiver. He's a smaller slot receiver, but he has return experience. I haven't watched Quintez Cephas. I know he didn't run well. I haven't watched Isaiah Hodgins. I know he's a bigger wide receiver. Colin Johnson's a big wide receiver, but he's kind of slow. He's kind of in that Laquon Treadwell mold, but I think he's probably a little bit better. But, he's a question mark. Antonio Gandy Golden's sort of a poor man's Allen Robinson, so he's a big outside receiver. He's going to be He's going to be similar to Treadwell in terms of he's going to be a guy that's going to win at the catch point. Gabriel Davis is a good outside stretch receiver. I'm not a huge KJ Hill fan. I think he's kind of a slot receiver. Lynn Bowden is a return specialist, quarterback turn returns. I haven't really watched him. I've seen some highlights. Prochet is a slot receiver that has return skills. Jawan Jennings has some off-field issues. He is basically Mohamed Sanu. He has that ability to be sort of slot receiver, can line up outside a little bit, can block, can run the Wildcat, can run that 12 gauge. So he's like, if you're looking for a Mohamed Sanu replacement, Jawan Jennings is the perfect guy, but he has some off-field issues that you have to sort through. Isaiah Coulter, haven't really watched him. I watched the other guy from Rhode Island. Joe Reed's a return specialist. He's, again, a Sanu type. Slot receiver, can run some Wildcat stuff. Lipscomb's a slot. Benjamin Victor's a big outside receiver, but he's okay. Hightower's got that speed. Cleveland's big and fast, but I don't love him. Is Godry the one that's fast? I can't remember. But yeah, these are the types of guys that, some of these guys are going to be day 3 picks. So if the Falcons, if I was guessing where the Falcons might go with the draft, if they do take a wide receiver, Duvernay because of the return skills, Proche because of the return skills, Bowden because of the return skills, Joe Reed because of the return skills. Those would be my best guesses if the Falcons do draft a wide receiver, what direction they will go. This draft has a bunch of good, like this draft is kind of like good for slot receivers. I don't know if you have as many sort of deep outside threats that you ideally, if you're the Falcons, I don't know if this draft is really deep in terms of getting those, speed outside threats late, in the draft on day 3. Hightower is one of the guys that stands out. Let's see. Steen asks, why does everyone want a project like Kinlaw? Who's your real favorite projection Winfield train over here? Winfield's my number 1 safety in this draft. I don't think Kinlaw's a project. I've seen other people say like he's, all D tackles take time to develop. It's rare that you have a D tackle come in right away and be a high impact player and look, like an Aaron Donald type of player. But you've seen guys like Sheldon Richardson come in right away, have some success. Leonard Williams came in, had some success. There was another defensive rookie of the year player that I'm blanking on. Sue came in, had a lot of success. So I don't think Kinlaw is like a project. I think he's a guy with upside, but I think, by year, he can come in right away, give you some production as an interior pass rusher, and by year 2, he could be, one of the better D tackles in the NFL. So I don't think he's a project in that way. Andy says there seems to be a hyper focus on defense, but we need a wide receiver that can play special teams and a burner who fits that bill, as I laid out. A couple of guys. In terms of perfect special teams guy that also have speed, yeah, I mean, particularly if you're looking for an outside guy, like Duvernay is probably the best option. But again, he's more of a slot receiver. But he's got a track background, he's got return skills. So he's probably, if he's there in round 4, like, I think the projection is he'll probably go round 3, but because of the depth of this draft class, he might fall in round 4. And if he's there at the top of round 4, I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Falcons pulled the trigger on him. Isaiah Hodgins, I haven't really watched Hodgins yet, but I know people that like him a lot, and he's another guy. Cody Silk says, I saw you're a fan of Antoine Winfield, but what about Ashton Davis? Ashton Davis is a good player. He's got that ability as a single high safety. But I don't know if the Falcons really need that. I know other people think that the Falcons, need a single high safety. There certainly is room to grow there, but I feel like for this season, if you're the Falcons, I think you're kind of looking for more of a cover 2 type of guy, a guy that can play that. And so obviously a lot of sort of guys that have single high skills can also play cover 2 just as easily because you're covering less ground or, covering a half of the field instead of a third of the field. So those single high skills come into play. But I don't love Davis as much as other people do, but I know there's people that are very high on him because of his ability as a single high safety. But he's a solid player, should go in round 2. I wouldn't be upset if the Falcons drafted him, but he's not my favorite safety. Pro Football Central, maybe you heard of him. 4th and 11, who do you look for the deep threat? I mean, that's Julio. 4th and 11, that's going to be Julio's football pretty much 9 times out of 10, with the 1 time out of 10 being Calvin Ridley. So, do or die situation. Matt Ryan's going to go to the receiver he trusts. And that's not going to be Laquon Treadwell. It's not going to be Russell Gage. It's going to be Julio Jones, unless he loves the matchup against that Calvin Ridley has. And then he might go to Calvin Ridley. So, Any other questions you guys have about Treadwell, about the draft, about this upcoming season? We'll see. Basically, for those of you that are joining us now, basically the summary of Treadwell is he has some skill set. He can play in this league. There's no doubt about that. But the thing that holds him back is he's not really a high upside offensive weapon. He's not really a guy that's going to, you're going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, we got to keep Laquon Treadwell involved in this offense. He's just kind of an afterthought in the offense because his skill set is, relatively speaking, limited. He's not going to be able – he can win in certain ways, the slants, those types of things. He can do some stuff out of the slot, whatnot. He can block a little bit, but he's not really a vertical threat. He's not really a separating guy. So the problem is, if you have him in your lineup, as the Vikings showed over the last 4 years, you're not going to really look at him as like, that's a guy that we can upgrade. Basically it's like, it's similar to, no offense to Christian Blake, but it's similar to Christian Blake. If Christian Blake is your third wide receiver, you're going to sit there and be like, we can get a better third wide receiver than Christian Blake. But does that mean Christian Blake can't play in this league? No. Does that mean Christian Blake can't contribute to your offense? No. But you're going to look at that and say, like, we can do a lot better than that. And I don't think Treadwell is going to bring much more than that. Steen says we're not able to retain both Neal and Allen in 1 year. That may be true. But for me, at least, before I would invest too highly in a safety, specifically a safety that has a narrow skill set, I would necessarily look at safeties that can do multiple things. Because if Neal and Allen are gone next year, which is certainly true, I also kind of think the coaching staff is probably going to be gone next year along with them. So I would rather not sort of draft a safety, or particularly a high round safety, and use like a 2nd or 3rd round pick on the safety, and then hire a coaching staff. He doesn't fit the scheme, like getting a box safety, giving a cover 3 box safety to replace Keanu Neal. And then we go to a cover 2 scheme and you're like, what is this guy doing? He's not going to be a factor, So I think, if you're targeting a safety early in this draft, you want a guy that has some versatility to do multiple things. I think that's why, for me personally, Antoine Winfield, I like him a lot. I think he's ideally a cover 2 safety, but I think he can play some single high. He's not necessarily a box safety in terms of, he's going to be running around hitting people, but, he can function as a strong safety if you need him to in a variety of schemes. But I think he can play cover 1, he can play cover 2, he can play cover 3. So I like those types of safeties that have a more versatile skill set, because I don't know what the future of the safety position, as you point out, Steen, this could be Allen's last year. This could be Keanu Neal's last year. I think right now the safer bet is this probably is going to be Keanu Neal's last year. This could be DeMonte Casey's last year. So I'm not going to marry myself to a safety that isn't versatile. So that's why, for me, it's one of those things where if the Falcons wind up passing on a safety, I'm not going to be upset, because I feel like, if you get a linebacker, you get a corner, you get some pass rush, you get some, return specialist, wide receiver, whatever, running back, offensive line, if those are your picks, then I'm cool with that. And we'll just sort of have to make do with the safety, depth that we have. We have some decent options. Sherrod Neeson might be moving back to strong safety. You got Jamal Carter, you got Chris Cooper, you got Casey back there, you got Neal, you got Allen. Again, I think the Falcons certainly have room to upgrade their safety depth, big room to upgrade their safety depth, but it's one of those things where I want to see what happens with Neal. I want to see what happens with Casey. I want to see what happens with Allen. I want to see what happens with Neesman. I want to see what happens with Jamal Carter. I'm not necessarily married to drafting a safety unless that guy has, like, to me, Antoine Winfield type ability to be versatile and play in a variety of schemes. You can put Antoine Winfield in any defense. I think he'll find a role and be a high-level player for you. I don't know about some of these other safeties if they're going to be a high-level player in a variety of schemes. Jew Talk Sports says, do you prefer a DB in round 1 or D tackle D end? I mean, if you had asked me this a month or two ago, I would have said DB in round 1 because the Falcons need to go get a D tackle D in free agency. And they got Fowler, but I think they needed more help. I think they needed to keep Claiborne. I talked about this last week on the Fowler breakdown. But to me, they needed to be more proactive in free agency to address some of their holes in D line, because I think they still need D tackle help. They still need an interior pass rusher. They could also use edge help because you don't know whether or not Takk McKinley is going to play beyond this year. So if you can get a solid, heir apparent replacement for Takk McKinley, that would be great. So I feel like in an ideal world, the Falcons would have been very aggressive attacking their D-line needs in free agency, and then that would have led them to be allowed to address their DBs in round 1. So if it's up to me, it's not about the position, it's about the player. I have Kinlaw sort of number 1 for mine. But after Kinlaw, I'm not really in love with any of the D linemen. The Chasons, the Epinezas, the Yetur Gross-Matos. None of those guys at the top of the draft I'm not particularly in love with. I don't feel like, oh man, if the Falcons don't draft that guy, they're really missing out. I feel like, not to say that those guys are a dime a dozen, but I feel like every draft you can find pass rushers and D linemen of those caliber every draft. I don't know if every draft has a Kinlaw type. So after Kinlaw, it's 100% cornerback. So if Kinlaw's there, I'm taking Kinlaw. If Kinlaw's not there, then I'm going for the best cornerback available. I personally think that's C.J. Henderson. We'll see if the Falcons agree with me on that. I've heard talk that they're not in love with C.J. Henderson, even though I think he does fit well with what they do. But we'll see how that develops. So, yeah, I guess to answer your question, Kinlaw or DB, basically. Trumaine Johnson. I mean, look, any cornerback at this point in time, you can argue, is an upgrade. Whether it's Trumaine Johnson, whether it's Dark Horse Denard, just because the Falcons have very undeveloped, untested, unproven cornerbacks right now. Sheffield did some positive things last year. Oliver did some positive things in the second half of the season, but both of those guys still struggled a lot in the second half of the season. I think that narrative that those guys were solid to good in the second half of the season once Raheem Morris took over, I think is very, very overrated. We saw this secondary struggle in both Bucs games. It wasn't necessarily the corners that were the problem in that first Bucs game where Chris Godwin was cooking them. It was more Devontae Casey than anything. But in the Week 17 game, it was Brashad Perriman. He cooked Oliver. He cooked Sheffield. He cooked a whole variety of dudes in that game. And, I don't think they were great in the Jaguars game. They were okay relative to in the Saints game because you're expecting them to cover Michael Thomas. But Michael Thomas was running circles around Oliver in that first Saints game. He did better in the second Saints game, but by then, that game wasn't much. So, for me, it's one of those things where I would take pretty much any corner, any veteran corner at this point in time, in addition to potentially a high round pick in this draft. So to me, I think the Falcons need a number 1 corner. I don't think anybody currently on the roster is, with Claiborne gone, is Epinesa an option? I think Epinesa is an option. I don't think he's a likely option, but you never know. Epinesa does give you some of that ability as an interior pass rusher that I think you need with Fowler, with Takk, with Grady Jarrett. I wouldn't love the value at pick 16, but I'm not going to sit here and hate on it. I feel like you can get better players than Epinesa at that point in the draft. But if you like Epinesa, if you're good, if you think he's going to be a high level interior pass rusher in the NFL, then pull the trigger on him. But I think he'll be a good interior pass rusher. I think he'll be effective. I don't know if he's going to be a high level guy. I don't know if he's going to be like an 8+ sack guy as an interior pass rusher. The potential is there. Don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily feel good about where he is as a prospect that I would be like, yeah, that's a surefire thing. Like I feel like with Kinlaw. Obviously there's no such thing as a surefire thing when it comes to the draft, but I feel much better betting on Kinlaw to be a disruptive and reliable, high-level disruptive force in the form of a Chris Jones, who we showed you guys doing some work as a 5 technique on this highlight, on this film breakdown in this Treadwell thing earlier. I feel like Kinlaw, that's the player Kinlaw often gets comped to. I think AJ Epinesa is kind of like who who did I compare him to earlier? I can't even remember. But like, you know, he's okay. He's solid. I'm not gonna hate the pick, but I don't love it. Jay in the life says draft picks: Kinlaw, AJ Terrell, Allahu Yimin, the safety from Notre Dame, David Woodward, the linebacker, Michael Walker, the linebacker, Steven Gonzalez, the center. I don't know who Steven Gonzalez is. I'll be honest with you. Michael Walker, I know the Falcons are interested in him. David Woodward, I haven't really watched David Woodward. I watched him a little bit during the season. I wasn't blown away by him. Alohi Gilman, every time I was watching Notre Dame pass rushers, he popped on film, but I haven't really concentrated on him. But he seems like a solid sort of, third round pick. AJ Terrell, I'm imagining you're projecting him in round 2. He's going to go in round 1. Everything I've heard is he's going to go in round 1. So probably in the top 20. He's going to go a lot higher than people think. So if you're thinking he's going to fall at 47, that's not happening. So you got to trade back into round 1 to get AJ Terrell. So that's a good draft. Don't get me wrong. I like that draft based off of the players I've seen. So, but yeah, Terrell's going to go in round 1. Buffalo signed 3 free agents, D linemen. Yeah, I thought Buffalo did a great job. Shaq Lawson went to Miami. Who they get? They got the Carolina guys. Why am I blanking on Vernon Butler, right? Mario Addison, and who else? I can't think of who else. But like that's the type of approach I would have preferred to see the Falcons attack. Buffalo, I think, has done a great job. Like you go back to Buffalo's last offseason with the offensive line. They got Ty Nsekhe. They got Spencer Long. They spent less money than the Falcons did, even though they signed 5 guys and got better value out of the pick. So Buffalo's been killing it with their free agent plans. Quentin Jefferson. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So, yeah, Buffalo's been killing it in free agency. Brandon Breen, or whoever the GM is, he's been killing it in free agency these last couple of years. And that's how the Falcons should be doing it, but they don't. Steen, do you ever play Madden? No, I don't. I haven't played Madden since 07. Which year was the Vic one? Was that 06, 07? Yeah. I'm not a big Madden player. Sorry. Something would tell me he sucks at. Yeah, I used to be decent at Madden. I used to be decent back in the day when I played it regularly, but every time I played it in the year since, nah, I'm not good. Andy season that the Falcons trade back. What players would you want the team to target with the late first round pick? Trade back as in trade back from 16, or trade back in terms of jumping from 47 into round 1? I mean, to me, like if you trade back, you're looking for a corner. In my opinion, you're hoping that run on corners is probably going to happen from where the Falcons pick at 16. Dallas is going to probably take a corner. Who picks 18? Is that Miami? No, Miami's probably not going to take a corner. Las Vegas, 19 is going to take a corner, probably if they take a wide receiver with their earlier pick. Jacksonville's at 20, they're going to take a corner. Philadelphia could take a corner, they'll probably take a wide receiver. 22, Minnesota could take a corner. New England at 23 probably won't. New Orleans at 24 could take a corner. They'll probably take a linebacker potentially. But they could take a corner there. So there's going to be a run of corners probably between that 16 and 24 pick where you could see 3, 4 or more corners come off the board. So if you're trading back, if you trade back too far, you're not going to be able to get one of those top 5 corners potentially. So you better be very happy with the depth of this draft, CB6, CB7, that type of dude being available. I think, I did a mock earlier this week where I think I had Fulton go 25. No, I had Fulton go like 20th or somewhere around that to like Jacksonville. I think I had Gladney lasting there to 32 to the Chiefs. And so Gladney's probably going to go somewhere. I've heard Tennessee might like him at 29 and the Chiefs might take him at 32. So if you're trading back, I think you're probably trading back for Gladney. You're trading back for Igbenogany because I think Terrell's going top 20. Henderson's going top 17. I think Jalen Johnson's going to go higher than people think. So he's going to probably go in the top 25. Fulton's probably going to go in the top 25. Probably if you move back too far, you're probably going to miss out on some of the top 5 corners with Okudah sort of missing out. So if you're happy with Gladney, if you're happy with Igbenogany, if you're happy with some of these other guys, then I think you can trade back. Oh, are you referring to Madden? I'm sorry. Trade back from 16. Yeah. So yeah, I think if you're trading back, I mean, like I'm not sitting here saying that you shouldn't trade back. I'm just sitting here saying like you need to be comfortable that if you wind up settling for like the 7th best corner, you're good with that. If you're cool with that, if you're, Diggs, Gladney, Igbenogany, those types of guys, to me, who are probably going to be, 6, 7, 8 in some order off the board. Arnett is also in that mix as well. If you're cool with those guys as your top pick, trade back, get the extra second, get the extra third, get the a fourth maybe thrown in there to sweeten the pot, and do it. I wouldn't begrudge the Falcons if they like those guys. I like Gladney quite a bit. I like kind of all those corners that I've seen in this draft. Some of these guys I like a lot more, but more than likely, based off what I've heard, the Falcons are gonna stand pat at 16. I think all this trade back talk. I think is people making much ado about nothing. People have told me that they're going to sit pat at 16 and take the best corner on their board. And whether that's CJ Henderson, whether that's an AJ Terrell, whether it's a Jalen Johnson, whether that's a guy like Gladney or Christian Fulton, I don't know. But yeah, that's what I've heard. So we'll see how that goes. Darren Moore, trading back. I don't think you can trade back and get AJ Terrell. I think he's going, like, maybe you can go back 1 spot with the Cowboys or 2 spots with Miami, maybe 3 spots with the Raiders. But, like, from what I've heard, if AJ Terrell's sitting there at 19, the Raiders are taking him. If AJ Terrell's sitting there at 20, the Jaguars are taking him. So I don't think you can really trade back far and get AJ Terrell. Like, you can maybe move back 1 or 2 spots, maybe. So, yeah. But if you're trading back to get Winfield, again, Winfield's my favorite safety. I'm not going to hate on that pick. I think he's going to be a really, really talented player in this league for a very long time. And not going to hate on that pick. But obviously, you're going to then have to get a good corner in round 2. And you better hope that someone good is there at 47, because I think there is going to be a run on corners sometime between pick 16 and pick 47. And I think we could see 6, 7, 8 corners go off the board in between those picks, based off of what I've heard from people and what I've been reading from people. Like Okudah's going top 7, 8, probably top 5 if we're being honest, but let's just say 7, 8 for the benefit of the doubt. I've heard Henderson could go as high as 9 to Jacksonville. I don't think Henderson's probably going to go somewhere between 9 and 17. I think Terrell could go as high as 12 to Oakland. I keep saying Oakland. Las Vegas. I think they'll probably take a wide receiver that high, but he could go 12 that high there. And again, he'll probably go somewhere between 20. And then you're getting into the Fulton and Jalen Johnson and Gladney and Igbenogany and Arnett and Diggs. And I think all those guys are going to go somewhere between 17 and 40 or something like that. So yeah, I mean, if you're not going to take a cornerback in round 1, I think the well is going to start to dry up when you get to 47. So you better be very happy that this draft class is like 9, 10 corners deep, or you better be very content with Kendall Sheffield and Isaiah Oliver as your potential starters. So Cody says, can Gage line up on the outside? I mean, he did the first 2 years, before the Sanu trade, but he wasn't really good at that. So he's a better slot receiver than he is an outside receiver. So he can do that in a pinch, but he's not particularly good there. Darren Moore, have you heard the rumors about us drafting one of the top receivers? I call BS. This is always happens to us and it doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's BS. They're not going to take a wide receiver. I know you've seen some mock drafts. You've seen some people talk about they like players. I'm sure they like some players, but they're not going to take a wide receiver. It's not going to happen. So you can sleep well at night knowing that's not going to happen. If they take a wide receiver, it's going to come in maybe round 4, and it's going to be a guy that probably has return skills. And I outlined earlier some of those guys, the Devin Duvernays, the Joe Reeds. Who did I miss? I named somebody else. But yeah, those types of receivers that have return skills in round 4, day 3 of the draft. They're not taking a wide receiver before that. I wish they would, but I would love to see a Laviska Shenault or somebody like that, but it's not going to happen. So it is what it is. If the Falcons aren't too high on Henderson, you think the Falcons would surprise us by taking Terrell at 16? Wouldn't shock me. I mean, that's the thing about the Falcons is just like, I've heard that they may not be as in love with Henderson as myself is, which is not the first time where I thought a player was really good and the Falcons didn't. So that's part of it that's driving that based off of what people have told me. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense because like I really like a player and the Falcons are like, yeah, he's okay. So it wouldn't shock me if the Falcons preferred a guy like Terrell to Henderson. I think you can argue that Terrell's floor is higher than Henderson. That's an argument I've maybe heard people say, and you can argue it. I think Henderson's ceiling is much higher than Terrell's, but you can make the case that Terrell was a lot more consistent as a college player at a high level, outside of that title game against LSU where Jamar Chase got him. Now, I think that's the difference between Henderson. Henderson, did a really good job against Jamar Chase in their matchup last year. Terrell did not. And so I think that speaks to the ceiling potential that Jamar Chase is probably going to be a top 5 pick next year. You'll probably hear Julio Jones comparisons when we get to Jamar Chase, 9 to 12 months from now when he's entering the draft. That's how good he is. And I thought Henderson did as well a job as anybody I saw last year do against Jamar Chase. He's that type of dude. So I don't hold that against AJ Terrell that he got beat by Jamar Chase. He did a good job early in that game, then got popped by Clyde Edwards-Helaire trying to make a tackle, and then immediately on the very next play gave up a touchdown to Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase was just too big, too strong, too fast for him for the rest of the game, and he struggled. And in the second half of the game, they kind of moved him away from Jamar Chase. He didn't get as many opportunities because he struggled in that first half, in the last quarter and a half of that first half against him. So I like Terrell. He's a guy that was late too. And he's a good player. He's legit first-round pick. You can argue he's the third best corner in this draft after Akuda and Henderson. And so it wouldn't shock me if the Falcons wanted to take Terrell over Henderson, just because the Falcons are the Falcons and they have their own type of players. I think Henderson's longer, he's faster, he's more physical than AJ Terrell is, but Terrell's not a bad player by any means. AD Steve says overall best move is to stay in pat at 16 versus trading up or trade back. Is that the best move? I mean, it's better than trading up. I mean, I've said this on Thursday night when we had the show with Alan Sturck. I don't think trading up makes any sense for the Falcons. I think giving up picks when you only have 6 picks and you have all these holes that we're talking about, wide receiver, running back, tight end, offensive line help, they could use help at all those positions. Obviously not a priority on that side of the ball, but you could certainly use 1 or 2 other players. You definitely use a center, heir apparent to Alex Mack if this is his last year. You could definitely use another skill position player, whether that's a number 2 running back behind Todd Gurley. That could be his heir apparent if he's not back next year. You could definitely use a wide receiver that has a little bit more of that vertical speed that can be a return specialist that can give you more than what Laquon Treadwell is going to give you that position. You could use another tight end in case Jaden Graham isn't up to par as the number 2 guy. I think he will be, so I don't think it's a priority, but you want to bring in some competition for that, somebody that can help out as a blocker, because as I broke down on that Hayden Hurst breakdown, 2 weeks ago, Hayden Hurst is not really going to give you a lot of value as a blocker, at least based off of what he was in Baltimore. So you could use all that help on offense. And obviously, as we've talked about, you got a ton of more pressing needs on defense. You need interior pass rush. You need another body there. I don't think trusting in John Kaminsky and Alan Bailey to be sort of that 4th guy in your pass rush makes a ton of sense, because they didn't really do a whole lot last year to make you feel confident that they are going to have a big role. They should be better than what they were last year, because Kaminsky barely played, so just giving him more reps should equal more production. And Bailey should be better because, the bar is so low. He only had 2 good games last year as a pass rusher. So like if he has 3 good games this year, boom, he's improved. So again, the bar is so low there, but trusting in those guys, need more D tackle help. You could use another edge rusher. You don't need it because you have Tack, you have Fowler, you have a bunch of sort of backup guys, Stephen Means, Jacob Tuioti Mariner, etc., that can provide you value as depth guys. But since this is likely to be Tack's last year, you could use another body there that could sort of slide into his role. Linebacker help, you could definitely use that. Cornerback help, you need a number 1 corner because I don't think you have one on the roster. And as we've discussed a number of times, safety depth is iffy. I don't think you need a starter, but you could definitely use some safety depth just because of the injury issues that have arguably tanked your season the last 2 years. The Falcons haven't really done much to address that. So you have all these needs, and you're going to only have 6 picks. And so if you trade up, are you going to wind up with 4 or 5 picks? How are you going to address all those needs? Then you're going to be relying on undrafted rookies. Like, that's a bad plan, So unless you're going to go on a spending spree in June when you get that Trufant money, like, I think the Falcons roster has taken a significant step back based off of their offseason so far. And I think trading up, even though you might get a superstar player, Kinlaw, Henderson, Simmons, Okudah, or whatever, that's awesome. It's going to help you, sell tickets. It's going to help you sell jerseys. But I don't know if that player alone is going to win you football games, because if you get a big-time corner like Okudah, where's the pass rush coming from, right? Is he going to make your linebacker core better? Is he going to make your offensive line better? No. So, again, I think the Falcons have a lot of holes. So trading up, to me, doesn't make any sense. So trading back, I don't have a problem with it because you get more picks. You can address more holes. But you might be missing on good players, better players, if you're doing so. So you better be content with, as I talked about, particularly at the quarterback position, you better be happy about the depth of this cornerback class, which, again, other people, and I'm not here to disagree with them, think that this is a really deep cornerback class. So you can get talent, later in round 1, in round 2, and whatnot. So I'm not going to sit here and say that that's wrong assessment, but you better be very confident, if you wind up settling for, as I said, the 7th or 9th or 10th best corner in this draft class, that you're going to get a good player that's going to be able to come in and impact. So what's your sleeper pick at 16 that no one is really thinking about, because the Falcons are always going to zig when you going to zag? Look, I don't know. We talked about AJ Terrell. We talked about Kenneth Murray. I think that's an option there. I'm trying to think the less common picks. Everybody's like Kinlaw, it's Henderson. Those are the 2 most common picks. Murray's probably 3rd. Terrell, Jalen Johnson, Trevon Diggs. I don't see a safety at all. Like, I think there's like a 0% chance, 0.1% chance. So I don't even see that as a sleeper. That's just off the radar. I don't see that happening, as some people think it is. Trying to think. Patrick Queen, I think if they're going to go linebacker, it's going to be Kenneth Murray, but that technically makes Patrick Queen a linebacker. But the point is, like, I don't even worry about who the Falcons are at. They're going to do what they're going to do. People are going to freak out. They're going to flip out. They're going to cheer. And then we'll just wait 3 years to see if that player works out. Basically, the louder people are on draft day in a positive light, historically speaking, the worse that player winds up being. The more negative people are on draft night based off of their reaction to the pick, historically speaking, the better the player is going to be. So I've learned it's taken a long time for me to build up that resistance, but I've learned to just relax with the Falcons' first round pick. Like last year with Lindstrom was the first time I thought it was going to be Cody Ford, but they took Lindstrom, and I was like, cool, I like Lindstrom. Like, it's one of those things where I don't spend a lot of time worrying about who the Falcons are going to draft. It's not that big a deal to me. They're going to draft who they're going to draft. To me, it's more about getting, in my opinion, 8 or 9 good players out of this draft. Finding the way to turn 6 picks into 8 or 9 good players is, to me, the goal that I'm invested in, not necessarily who they wind up drafting in round 1. Do you think the Falcons would consider Florida State Levante Taylor in the later rounds as a hybrid safety cornerback? I don't know much about Levante Taylor, so sure. Sorry, I don't have any particular insight into him as a prospect, so seems plausible. I don't know. Iron Rain says, due to the current situation, I expect several glitches in the draft this year. Your thoughts? Do you think the Pats will be hacking this year. It's always possible with the Patriots. So we'll see. The technical hurdles will be interesting to see how much that winds up disrupting the draft. Falcons go cornerback in first. What's the most likely position the Falcons take in the second? I mean, Matt Hennessy, the Temple center seems a popular projection, and it seems like if they're going to get a good center this year, if Hennessy's there, I kind of feel like they have to kind of draft him. I'm not in love with that value there because I don't know if Hennessy's on the level of guys like Elton Jenkins and Eric McCoy that were drafted around that time last year that came in right away and were productive. Dalton Reisner, another guy. I don't think Hennessy's on that level as a prospect, but just because the draft class isn't deep at the center position, yeah, I'm not going to bother them. So, I think if they go corner in round one, I think center, Hennessy, if Hennessy's gone, which I've heard the Giants really like him at the top of round two, so that's a possibility. If he's gone, I mean, I hope that Falcons don't reach on Nick Harris, the center from Washington at 47, but some people think he's going to be a top 50 pick, which I will just shake my head at. I'm more invested in the Falcons not picking Nick Harris in round two than I am on whoever they draft in round one. It's like whatever. Wait till round four to get Nick Harris if that's the goal at the center position. Trying to think. Terrell Lewis, the edge rusher from Alabama, makes sense because his coach is here. Who else? One of the D tackles, Matabuke from Texas A&M, is a player that's popularly mocked to the Falcons in round two. Trying to think. Who else? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To be honest with you, I have never been able to figure out who the Falcons are going to take in round two. So I thought Keanu was going to be the round two pick. A couple years ago, he was their first round pick. I thought Lindstrom might be their second round pick in round two. He wanted to be the first round pick. So they have a habit of taking guys that a lot of people think are second round guys. And that's why, we throw out a guy like AJ Terrell a lot where, based off what I've heard, he's going to go higher than people think. And he's the typical guy that I think a lot of people have been mocking to the Falcons in round two. And so he may be an option there. Darren Moore, although I don't agree with everything you say with your hot takes, LOL, I just want to thank you for all what you do to the Falcons fan community. These takes are ice cold, Darren. But I appreciate that, guys. And we've gotten in 40 minutes of Q&A in the chat. So I appreciate you guys, peppering me with questions. We can talk some Falcon stuff. The Treadwell stuff. It's like people tuning in now. Like, I thought this was a Treadwell breakdown. Yeah, we broke down Treadwell 45 minutes ago. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys. And I know during this time of year, you guys are thirsty for content. You're thirsty for sports content. So that's one of the reasons why myself, Brian, the producer who you've seen in the chat as Pro Football Central here, as I'm running this show, we've been cranking out this content, trying to keep you guys, keep your mind distracted so that as you're sitting here in the house, and we got more to come. I don't know what the plan is for next week because normally we would do the show next Thursday, but obviously the draft is going to be going on. So me and Brian are going to talk about sort of what we want to do next week. If we want to do an earlier show in the week or we'll figure that out. But certainly at some point, whether it's Thursday, whether it's Friday, whether it's Saturday, I think right now the plan is Saturday, that we will have a live show on Saturday. And it'll be more of a call-in show. We haven't had a call-in quite yet, but basically my plan for next Saturday for day 3 of the draft is, jump on live, send out the link for the show where you guys can join us live. And if you want to jump in and give your thoughts on the Falcons draft, as we're live going through day 3, where at this point in time, the Falcons aren't going to be doing a lot. So we'll have plenty of time to talk. That's the plan right now for me. So if you guys are interested in that, be on the lookout for that. So that's the plan, at least initially for next week. We'll see if we make any adjustments. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you guys, tuning in and whatnot. And, I love talking football. I love talking Falcons football. I love giving those hot takes, as Darren says. But yeah, man, it's a tough time out here in these streets. And we'll just sort of have to see what happens. But, we got some great content. Going to keep trying to do, 2 or so shows a week. Might have to come live on the Facebook page on Thursday night to get that sort of quick reaction to the Falcons pick. So look for that. Check out Falcon Central Radio on Facebook. If you haven't already liked the page, check us out there. I might do it on Twitter, Falcons PFC. Just what's easiest to me in the moment, I will decide. So follow Falcons PFC on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at FalcFans. Check out Pro Football Central on Twitter as well, PF Central. Of course, like and subscribe these videos. Spread the word, guys. For these film breakdowns, we're going to be doing more of these once we know who the Falcons pick. We won't be doing all 22 quite to the degree because it's hard to get college all 22. I'll see if I can, I might know a guy that knows a guy that may be able to rustle up me some all 22 stuff, but we'll do some, we'll show you some YouTube cut ups or whatever and break down some of these prospects for future weekend projects as we, this draft stuff, we're going to have to, we're going to have a lot of free time. It's basically what I'm sitting here after the draft, in May and June, potentially, with everything going on in the world. So we're going to keep cranking out content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in today, peppering me with the questions, talking Falcons and draft stuff. And that's what we will leave it at today. Appreciate you guys for jumping in the chat. I know I didn't get to every question there, but